on all our social media platforms at 3FM927, also on 3news.com. In the bulletin this afternoon, court remands 3 persons over missing election equipment at the Electoral Commission. We have details shortly. Also, transport operators hold crunch meeting this afternoon over possible hike in transport fares as price of fuel at the pump goes up for the 3rd time this month. Also coming up, Nayomo Ayemwade, the young girl allegedly married to a traditional priest at Nungwa, is expected to be released from custody of the state later today. Also, in the bulletin, disgruntled former National Executive Committee members of the People's National Convention, the PNC, announced the formation of a new party, People's National Party, PNP. We have details of these stories and a lot more coming to you shortly. Please stay with us. Welcome to the program. Reminder that we're live also on all our social media platforms at 3FM927, also on 3news.com. Let's start off this afternoon with some news relating to fuel hikes. Well, oil marketing companies have increased the price of fuel for the second pricing window of April. Now, this is the 3rd time in April that we've seen fuel prices rise. 2 were the result of rising international prices and the cedi depreciation. The other was due to the reinstatement of the price stabilization and the recovery levy by government. The latest increment is expected to have a cascading effect on cost of goods and services. Already, the private road transport union, GPRTU, they are advocating for a 30% increment in transport fares in a bid to address the escalating operational expenses faced by their members. Now, some transport operators have already defied a caution by the Transport Ministry not to increase their lorry fares. Let's take a listen to a few of them.
Oba batua so how much be ye adwuma san boka ko bisa busia san da ye car engine police na o so oba ba chi ne se bi onimi chi a onu kan chi ne won face onu kan chi officer petrol share yen da ofo ne yatumu mo na mo ma go ahead na mo tumu o na o se yan abote ne yenya na mo tum yan abote nkosi se wo kwa market a nyama nyina mo atu nyama nyina mo atu and ya mo kan wansem na yan driver di kakra ne ye de beto su no.
Well, those were the views of some drivers who have already defied a caution by the Transport Ministry not to hike their fares, and transport operators are in a crunch meeting at the moment as a result of the increment in fuel prices. Let's touch base with my colleague George Quaining, who is at where the transport operators are holding their meeting. George, thank you for joining us on the program. Good afternoon to you. What have you gathered so far from the meeting?
What's the name? Crosby, good afternoon. Thanks for having me. And the meeting actually will take place later in the day after 4 p.m. because last week it started at 5:30 and ended at 8 p.m. So it has not started. But this very meeting is a rescheduled one. The earlier one was on the 10th of April. And so because it was inconclusive, they had to schedule a meeting for today. So clearly, the consensus is that they are proposing new fares. And so they will have to bargain with the ministry for the ministry to understand that this is it. Whatever your concerns are, they are legitimate. So let's go with the proposal. So usually, it's not really the case where you go with the proposal and it's granted on that day. As normal, the union is used to it. It takes time. So while they put their concerns before the ministry has to ascertain the truthfulness or otherwise. You are saying spare parts prices are up. You are saying DBL documentation is high. Insurance premium are high. They have to ascertain the truthfulness. So if they come in 20%, and then they get to ascertain the truthfulness of all of these, they come and say, okay, let's go to 20%, or let's say, I will give you 15%. So this very meeting, of course, they hope that they will have to conclude, because last week was inconclusive. They are hoping that today they'll conclude on the matter at Crosby.
But George, before you take leave of us, we understand that some of the transport operators, for instance, GPRTU, they are also raising concerns over the increment in the prices of these oil marketing companies. But what more have they been telling you?
So whilst we wait for the GPRTU to come with the new fares, some unions like the concerned drivers and the transport operators have increased their fares. But these are, counterparts of the GPRTU, and these unions that most of the time put the GPRTU on their toes. But the GPRTU is really concerned that they have to go ahead with the new prices, and also the Western Regional Branch also going ahead with the 50% increase. They're really concerned. Leadership is really handling that issue. So it's 20% Western Region. So I tried to coerce the PR, that's Abubakar tomorrow, whether if it's 20% that they took to the meeting, but he said no. This matter, he will not answer because he doesn't want to put any percentage across. It will bring some sort of confusion because you have to wait for the meeting to end so that they come up with a new prices. But they're really concerned. There's new increment in fuel prices, which of course they are aware of. But for them, mostly when they go to these meetings, they don't really add fuel prices. We are concerned with the spare parts and the other. So even though they are aware of the increment in the fuel prices, it will not be part of their concern when they go to the meeting today, Crosby.
George Queening, thank you so much for your time with us on the program. Let's now take a listen to the Ghana Private Transport Union.
In our business, we know the changes which has affected our businesses. So we have to present why we want an upward adjustment in lorry fares. We have to make sure we are specific. We are presenting what we can defend at all times. For instance, spare parts prices. We will give examples of some few. Lubricants, we will give example of some few. Documentations, insurance premium, DVLA documents, the permits we've been paying for, we have to justify by saying, oh, it was this, now it is this, it was that, now it is this. This is how we make our presentation. So due to this and that and that and that and that, this has gone up by this percentage, this has gone up by this, we are taking this percentage. So this is how we will go around. They will also verify behind us to make sure what we have presented is the true nature of why we are looking for that upward percentage. Then we continue. This is how it's been going. I think it is healthy to mention any percentage we presented because of the fragile situation of where we have gotten to. So I'll plead, let's finish. When we finish, whatever percentage we arrive at, we'll put it in the public domain. This is not the first time, and this will not be the last time. Concerns, most of the time, yes, they are like our pressure group. They disagree, finally we agree and come together and move forward. So I strongly believe that's how finally we will end up.
Well, that's the voice of Abbas Moro. He's the Industrial Relations Officer of the Ghana Private Road Transport Union, GPRTU, speaking with us there. Now, you may be aware that fuel prices have gone up again at pumps across the country, and this is for the second pricing window of April. But this is the third time in April that we're seeing fuel prices rise. Let's speak with the executive secretary of the Chamber of Petroleum Consumers Ghana, COPEC, Duncan Amor, for some more reactions to the trend we're observing and whether there is any end in sight for fuel consumers. Mr. Amor, thank you for joining us in the program. Good afternoon to you. More increases to be expected from your standpoint, looking at tensions in the Middle East over the last few weeks and the city performance. Is that the case?
Your currency would have an overall effect in how much fuel sells in your country, especially around this time when international benchmark prices continue to be relatively higher or continue to go up day in, day out. Unfortunately, for us in Ghana, your currency is not something you can actually hold to a litmus test or can predict, have some predictability for its performance for so. Once international market prices move upwards, there is a higher potential possibility you pay more for fuel in Ghana. Secondly, there's also been some few taxes here and there that have been upscaled or increased. And these together with international market prices, the poor performing local currency, and a few taxes that have also gone up on fuel prices, is contributing to where you are today, where petrol is just 1 pesewa shy of 15 Ghana cedis. I'm sure the OMC just didn't want you to feel that it's 15 cedis, so 14.99 is where they will cut off at. But clearly, you are at 15 already, and indications are that the city is not likely to be stable today, tomorrow. It could continue to lose ground to the dollar, particularly. Once that happens, and international markets also go up, especially from tensions between Russia, Ukraine, where Ukraine is now targeting Russian refineries. The only potential outcome that you're likely to even see the first window in May is either some stability or prices will go up again, sadly.
Mr. Anwan, government is on an IMF program. So is there any option available for consumers to have some levels of respite, even though the indicators do not point to that?
The IMF program should call for a lot of being measured, for us in country. You've gone to Bretton Woods to say you cannot be able to finance your own budget. And so they should provide some money for budgetary support for you. You would have given them figures to suggest that this is how much revenue you are raising and this is how much gap or loophole exists between your revenues and what you expect to probably spend on. And so it will be difficult for anybody to expect at this point that government can, on its own, do anything about taxes or give you any relief, especially under an IMF program where you are now going through, staff agreement to be able to get to, the board, board agreement to disburse funds for you to be able to balance your budget.
Right.
Clearly, the government and the state at this point can do very little. And that is why we had said earlier that with the trend observable over a period,
right,
we could potentially hit 17 Ghana cedis for fuel, by middle of this year. And that for us should call for some strategy being, devised to contain it. But it doesn't look as though we are doing much at this point, no.
Thank you so much for your time with us on the program. Duncan Amwa, he is the Executive Secretary of the Chamber of Petroleum Consumers Ghana, speaking with us there. This is a subject to be following up. We'll be bringing you details in a subsequent bulletin. But this is still the Midday News on 3FM 92.7, live also on all our social media platforms at 3FM 927. Plus, we're live also on 3news.com. Let's bring you some other stories this afternoon. Well, Nayomo Ayimwade, the young girl allegedly married to the Gbagbu, the Nungwa date, is today expected to be released from the custody of the state and reunited with her family. The young girl was taken into the custody of the social welfare on April 1 following her alleged customary marriage to the traditional priest at Nungwa on Saturday, March 30. Her alleged marriage sparked an outcry compelling the state to intervene. My colleague Sarah Penkro, she is at the palace observing activities, and she's joining us with some more updates on the very latest development concerning the release of Nayomo Ayimwade from the state to be reunited with the family. Sarah, good afternoon to you. Has she, and I'm talking about Nayomo Ayimwade, the 16-year-old girl, has she been returned, and what more can you report from the palace?
Of course, they rightly said I am right in front of the Bobuwulomo Palace, where the young lady in question is expected to have been brought home to unite with her family. As we speak, she has not yet been brought in, This morning when we got here, some members of the authority, some of the leaders went to have a meeting with the ministry. I was told they were going to have a meeting with the ministry. Then after the meeting, they would bring her. But you can see preparation is ongoing ahead of her return. Most of the priests and priestesses clad in their regalia are all over the place. Usually those, the traditional authority would say the Woye and Wulome, they are around. We also witnessed a donkey clad in white cloth tied on a tree in front of the shrine, which we were told would be the one to carry her at the entrance of the community into the shrine. So we are still here and observing activities to see how soon she would be brought in today.
That said, for her immediate family, and I'm talking about her parents, her father and her mother, how expectant are they of their daughter's return to the family or to the palace where she'll be expected to perform her customary duties?
As we speak, we haven't sighted the mother or father here as we speak. I have been to the house where she was being hosted by the godmothers who were taking care of her, and they said they are also prepared awaiting her arrival. But the biological parents are currently not in sight to speak to.
Sarah, pleasure talking to you. Thank you so much for your time with us on the program. Sarah Penkro joined us from the Gbagbu Palace, updating us on the return of Na Yomo Ayimwade, the young girl allegedly married to the Gbagbu the Nungwa deity, today expected to be released from the custody of the state to be reunited with her family. Let's take you to the Ashanti region now, where the Kumasi 1 thermal power plant, formerly Mary, has been commissioned in the Ashanti region today. The first phase of the project, which is a generational capacity of 150 megawatts. Let's engage William Evans Inkum. He's currently at the Angomaso in the Ofori municipality. He's joining us live. William, good to have you on the show. First of all, let's deal with the lifting of the Kumasi 1 thermal power plant. The NDC has made some allegations quoting an excess of $30 million just to relocate the plant. I know you've been speaking to the Ministry of Energy on this. What has been their response?
So we're just done with the commissioning of a pipeline which is about 430 kilometers from Prisia. It is passing through the Kumasi, then to another parts of the country as far as the Middle Belt is concerned. So this particular pipeline is what is going to power the Kumasi 1 thermal power plant, or better known as the K1 CPP. Otumfor Osetu, the Santene, just finished this particular project. The second project or program has to do with commissioning of the K1 CPP, that is the Kumasi 1 power plant. But coming beyond the commissioning of these facilities, which is expected to boost, power supply as far as the region, and for that matter, Middle Belt, and even beyond is concerned, we've also been engaging the Ministry of Energy. Remember, just yesterday, the largest opposition political party in the country, the NDC, held a press conference. And they came out with some allegations. One has to do with the lifting of the Ameri, which has now been renamed as the Kumasi 1 thermal power plant, from Western region to Asante region, specifically Ahomaso. They are alleging that the exploitation alone cost the state some $35 million. Now, we sought to find out from the Ministry of Energy just to understand why such amount of money will be injected into a transportation of the thermal plant from the Western region to the Ashanti region. And this is what, for the Energy Ministry, Kofi Grefa Afena, this is how he has been reacting to this particular allegation by the NDC.
Right. Thank you so much, William Evans Inkum. We'll be getting more on this particular aspect, the recommissioning or the commissioning of the Kumasi 1 thermal plant. Let's take a listen to the engagement that you had with the NDC. Unfortunately, we're unable to bring you that sound bite, but we'll get it to you. The interaction that my colleague William Evans Inkum had with the NDC in relation to the relocating of the Ameri plant to be recommissioned as the Kumasi 1 thermal power plant.
Looking at policies instead of being involved in industry and everything. It doesn't work. And it's about time Ghana realizes that it's not going to work for government to be involved in setting up companies and all those things. It doesn't work. Government should be contained with policies, and then private sector should be involved in setting up industries and everything. It works that way, and therefore you can attract more investments to come to the country, and it creates more employment. And others, our government establishment, let's give it out and divest to private sector, and then we inject money in there. And get the right people to do it. Great Co and others and all are all for private sector. Let's give them the money, get the qualified people, divest government from it, and let them do it. Other than that, electricity company is in a situation where we don't know, but that also must be divested and give it to private sector. Why are we still holding it when we don't have the money?
Well, that's the voice of the Asantehene Otumfuo 82 speaking there. He was also speaking at the commissioning of the Kumasi 1 thermal power plant. And for him, still on energy matters, he is advocating for the privatization of the electricity company of Ghana if we have realized that the country will not be able to effectively manage the affairs of the ECG. Otumfuo 82 speaking at the Kumasi 1 thermal power plant. Well, certainly this is a subject that will generate lots of conversation on mainstream media and on social media. I'll be bringing you details in our subsequent bulletins. This is still the Midday News on 3FM 92.7. We're live also on all our social media platforms at 3FM 927. We're live also on 3news.com. Moving on, unposted environmental health officers and the Assistants Association are demonstrating in Tamale to demand their immediate employment. According to them, their continued stay at home is putting a lot of economic and emotional burden on them. They have promised to storm the Ministry of Finance to picket if their demands are not met. My colleague Christopher Amwako is following this subject. He's joining us. He's been with the demonstrators. He's joining us on the phone. Chris, thank you for joining us on the program. First, before we engage with Chris, take a listen to what the aggrieved unemployed graduates have been saying.
This should be a personal matter. Maybe I may not know what they are going through, but I know that the situation that we are into can lead some people to do certain things that they are not supposed to do, because we are really frustrating in the house, and we are now like, it's not like a burden to our parents. When you see some things, you wish to also give them a supporting hand, and you realize that you don't even have anything. You don't. How can you have?
Well, those were the views of some of the demonstrators. Chris is on the line with us. Chris, tell us more on the demands of these unemployed graduates.
Yes, so for them, they are calling on government to immediately ensure that clearance is given for them to be employed. And second has to do with the fact that the people need them, the citizens need their services. And so their absence is causing a lot to the citizens. And so government should immediately give the clearance for them to be employed. They are also saying that if that is not done, they are going to storm the finance ministry to picket and do so until their demands are met.
So that will be their next line of action. Chris, pleasure talking to you on the program. Christopher Amwako spoke with us from Tamale, where unposted environmental health officers and assistants association are demonstrating in Tamale to demand their immediate employment. We'll bring you details in our subsequent bulletins. Away from that to some politics. 3 officials of the Electoral Commission and a student have been arraigned before an Accra Circuit Court over the theft of 3 biometric verification device printed charges, as well as some other electrical equipment from the officers of the Electoral Commission. The prosecutor, Chief Inspector Christopher Wanda, prayed the court to remand the accused because they are still investigating, and when granted bail, they will interfere, as they will just have been able to retrieve only 3 HP laptops from the accused persons. Investigations so far reveal that in March 2023, the Commission engaged its casual workers and security men to remove some of their materials from the warehouse at the Commission's old head office at Rich to one of their warehouses at Spintex. Now, A2 and A3, who are accused persons, they plan to steal some of the printers. In furtherance to their plan, A3 stole the HP printer from one of the kit boxes and handed it over to A2. Now, A2, another suspect, also stole 3 biometric verification device printer chargers and sent them home. A1, on the other hand, stole 3 HP laptop computers from the kit boxes and gave same to A4 to keep 1 and then repair the remaining 2 for him. Accused persons were charged and arraigned before the court whilst investigations continue. Now, the prosecutor told the court that they are yet to retrieve the remaining Dell laptops, which contain some data. The case has been adjourned to April 29, 2024. We're still doing some politics. Let's talk about the People's National Convention, the PNC. Well, some former National Executive Committee members of the People's National Convention, they have announced the formation of a new party, the People's National Party.
To which we're part of, have rules and regulations that when you have a problem, don't run to the don't run to the court. Use the party's processes to solve your differences in the party. Mr. Apasara ran to the court without following the party's rules and regulations. We punched everything Mr. Apasara said to the court, including the illegal practices he disrespected PSC rules while sending PSC to the court.
Well, that's the voice of Janet Nabla, who is now the interim chairperson and leader of the new party, and I'm talking about the People's National Party. Duke Mensah-Opoku covered the press conference. Duke, tell us more about the press conference, what really necessitated this breakaway, and what more did the interim chairperson say?
So, for those who have followed the news, the PNC, there's been some internal wranglings in the PNC for some time now. The issue ended up in court. It's been in court for the past 2 years, and just a few weeks ago, the High Court gave its ruling indicating that persons such as Janet Nabla and other members of the National Executive Committee of the PNC should step aside because they have no legitimacy. Now, these and other former members of the National Executive Committee of PNC today have announced that they are forming their own party. They say that they constitute executive members of 11 out of the 16 regions in the country, and they have formed their new party with the approval of the EC, the interim approval of the EC, which will be the People's National Party, the PNP, just as it was in the Third Republic with the party that birthed the government of Dr. Hila Liman in the Third Republic. So that's what exactly they have been saying here today. They also announced a list of interim national executives with Janet Nabila as the chairperson, Suleiman Said as the secretary, among others. And they believe that they've set their processes in motion to rescue the country from what they call the tyranny of the NDC and the NPP. Crosby.
Thank you so much, Duke, for joining us with those updates. Let's now take a listen to Suleimana Seidu explaining the membership of the new interim leadership of the PNP, the People's National Party.
Announce the interim executives of the national officers of the PNP. Their names are as follows. Interim chairman and leader be Janet Asana Nabla, the vice chairman Francis Opong, the general secretary Suleiman Esedu, the deputy general secretary Abdul Kadri Isa, the national organizer Francis Dasu, deputy organizer Faustina Annan. Our treasurer will be Jessica Aputari.
Right, so we now have a new political party. The PNP will begin processes to seek certification and issuance from the Electoral Commission. But that's how we wrap up on the Midday News on 3FM 92.7. There's more news on our website, 3news threefm927news.com. My name is Noble Crosby, Annan. Please log on for more. Business news is up next. Good afternoon.
Freezer, ya diaba. Adama for diaba. Freezer. Adama. Akuafo semenhia. Adama. Metimoso ma sorry. Kanino. Obobo mu ase a. Adwofrefre no bi amienu miensa na se nan. Atene wotimi di abase. Adama for adwena akuafo ho hu se. Ya duro ba kope. Ebe chifu ye bia. High technology. Akofo freezer ba. Wenku a. Eno so benya 15 latest. No hwiegum wati a no hwiegum. What the boss here? For you be any of us, you equity say, over Timono. Then we sure say, woman shown task here. Then what's enough for now? Freezer, power up at the freezer. Dacia, a bastion do so among Ammoniaji. To me, me was sick. To me, but you may not do some doom. Adama, with that Adama, no queer. Adama, you can't resist.
Ubenya Adama West Africa for a dream or baby bear a tongue cry on you. I feel Kayona Kinkai in Choya a dream.
Hello, good afternoon and welcome to Business Daily on 3FM 92.7. Coming up, governments to capitalize on newly discovered lithium industry for increased revenue amid IMF bailout program.
Happy to also get more support in the area of the extractive industry because Ghana has just found lithium.
Also, Fitch predicts weakening profitability for Ghanaian banks due to Bank of Ghana's cash reserve requirement policy. Plus, Cybersecurity Authority collaborates with tech providers to clamp down on cyber attacks.
Awareness gaps across governments, businesses, across the public, but even also children. That's the biggest threat that we face. So we're working with the tech providers.
My name is Minu Afo. We have details of these and more lined up for you in the next 10 minutes. Stay with me. And in our first story, government says it will leverage newly discovered lithium industry for improved revenue amid the ongoing IMF bailout program. Minister of State for Finance Abnao Asare says despite efforts by government to increase revenue, the country is still faced with numerous challenges. Contributing to the high-level capacity talk organized on the sidelines of the spring meetings of the World Bank and IMF, the minister called for additional support from the IMF to unlock revenues in the new natural resource discovered.
We are trying to digitize most of the way and the processes that the revenue administration is handled, and this is also yielding some positive fruits. Last year, year on year, we saw our revenue numbers going up by 40%. They were able to achieve their targets, and we're still on course. Again, we're trying to digitize the various institutions that offer services to government so that we also reduce the human intervention in the collection of revenues. And so we are doing all these things to boost our revenue generation and also address the challenges that we have faced. But we'll be happy to also get more support in the area of the extractive industry because Ghana has just found lithium.
That was Minister of State for Finance Abnao Asare there. In more stories, Fitch, a global rating agency, has forecasted that the profitability of Ghanaian banks is expected to weaken in the coming weeks following the Bank of Ghana's recent decision to tie cash reserve ratio requirements to loan deposit ratios. This move is seen as a response to the current economic climate in Ghana. According to Fitch, banks in the country may choose to bear the opportunity cost of not being able to deploy liquidity into high-yielding treasury bills rather than risk large loan impairment charges by extending credit in the current economic situation. The banking sector's loan-to-deposit ratio is expected to remain below 55% in 2024, resulting in a higher cash reserve requirement for majority of banks. The BOG introduced the new CRR regime on 25th March, directly linking the requirements on a tiered basis. Fitch Ratings anticipates that banks will tolerate the higher cash reserve requirements rather than significantly increasing lending, given Ghana's challenging macroeconomic conditions, with the new policy set to take effect by the end of April. Away from that, the Cybersecurity Authority says it is in collaboration with tech providers to clamp down on cyber attacks. According to its Director General, Dr. Albert Enchibwe, this has become necessary because cyber criminals are innovating their processes.
In a bid to prefer solutions to common trends within the cyber domain, the Cybersecurity Authority has organized the West African Symposium on sector collaboration and information sharing. Addressing the media on the sites, Director General of the authority, Dr. Albert Enchibwe, stressed the need for government and institutions to create awareness to protect businesses.
Once you don't have visibility, it becomes quite difficult for you even to take steps to address them. So awareness gaps across governments, across businesses, across the public, but even also children. That's the biggest threat that we face. So we're working with the tech providers, those who own the platform. They also have mechanism to detect this.
For his part, US-based software engineer Dr. Angel Huka called for stakeholder collaborations to clamp down on changing trends in cyber attacks.
Cybersecurity malicious actors continually are more and more savvy. So they continually find ways to work around any mitigations that have been implemented already. And one of the ways that we can thwart these threats are to work in collaboration.
Well, that report was put together by my colleague Bismarck Awusa. We informed that the Institute for Energy Security, IES, has observed the need for government to take a second look at its policies in the liquefied petroleum gas space for industry to flourish. To reverse the declining consumption of LPG in the country and save a crippling industry, Executive Director of IES, Annan Amwesi VII, has suggested a government engages stakeholders.
Then governments must revisit or review its own policy. That's one. It may be necessary to even review the cylinder recirculation model policy. Again, because the prices are more laden with taxes and levies, government may consider removing some of the taxes and levies. That is another thing. Then, of course, our CD to dollar relationship, always the CD seeing a decline in value. We must also manage that forex exposure because the importers factor this forex exposure into the final price. These are a few things to do. But finally, there must be a stakeholder engagement. If you had the LPG Market Association boss, you could see a frustrated leader here. And I'm sure it's almost in sync with the players within the industry. Stakeholder engagement is necessary to consider all this.
You heard the voice of Annan Amwesi VII, the Executive Director of the Institute of Energy Security. And that brings us to the end of Business Daily here on 3FM 92.7. For more business stories, please log on to our website on 3news.com. My name is Minu. Afo Black Rasta will be on standby for Urban Blend.